All right. All right. Hello, everyone. This is, well, let me turn my camera on. This is Ben Francis with the South Carolina Linux user groups, including the Upstate Carolina Linux user group and the Columbia Linux users group. UC Lug is championed by Jace Eckard. He calls himself the speaker presenter or speaker coordinator, and I'm the speaker coordinator for the Columbia Linux user group. We used to have a speaker coordinator in Charleston, but that person got tired of it, and so it's just two of us now. Maybe we can get maybe Myrtle Beach has a Linux user group that we can pull in. But today is pretty much a grab bag. Jace has some Linux tricks that he wants to show, and I have a short presentation on zero-based calendars. It is not the zero-based calendar timekeeping management method. It is calendars that start with 0 and go all the way to 364. And I might talk about a few others also. Okay. Hey, Jace, do you want to start off, or do you want to have me go?
No, go ahead.
Okay. All right. Let me share my screen then. Wait. Do we have any? We usually skip over the business, but do we have any business to go over?
I can't really think of anything.
Just the normal plugs for Southeast Linux Fest in June. There's a security conference on March 17 and 18 in Columbia.
Oh,
that's $150 to attend both days with the current pricing that I just checked on the website today. And that's all I know about them. But yeah, this is free group for anybody that's interested, and the public URL we are streaming right now at SC Lugs on Jitsi is open to the public as well. So if you have any friends, just give them the link, and anybody can jump on. All right, let me share my screen. Turn my camera off. Screen share. Entire screen. Yes, share. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to talk about zero-based calendars. Yes, there should have been a presentation subtitle.
Ben, I can't quite see, but I see a black screen right now.
Really? Well, I do have a black background, but I'm on the second slide now. Can you see that?
I cannot, but you can?
I can see it.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So I can continue.
Keep going.
All right. So Jason and I were wondering what we could present over the weekend, and I jumped in with calendars because I saw this tweet on Blue Sky, or Skeet as they call them, and this guy was asking for a Julian calendar for people who reject the lies of Pope Gregory the 13th, who was the Pope that instituted a calendar reform that deleted 10 days of history so that we could align the Gregorian calendar with the seasons that were actually occurring. And they had noticed that it was 10 days off from what it should have been because of the leap year business. And so Pope Greg said, okay, well, it's not going to be I think it was the 14th of one month. I can't remember which month it was, but he just fast forwarded to the 24th of the month, and those days of history never actually happened. So so that's what all that is about. And I had known about uh, Scott Flansburgh, who had created or recreated a zero-based calendar based on 13 28-day months. It wasn't a new thing. He just he's known as the human calculator, so he decided to add the human calendar to his repertoire. But yeah, very smart guy, fastest human calculator in the world, holds like 20 different Guinness Book of World Records, and so we'll be talking about him a little bit later. All right, so how do we measure time? Well, we got the year based on the solar cycle, which is 365.242 days. The point 242 is what leads to the extra leap year, and because it's not exactly 0.25 every 100 years or 400 years, we have to adjust another day for that. So every 4 years we have to adjust a day, and then every 100 years we have to do another day, and then every 400 years we have to subtract one, something like that. It's the way we do time. So months, being humans, we looked up at the moon and saw that the moon arrived and stayed around for about 30 days every month. So we kind of split the year up into 12 months based on the moon, and then the phases of the moon, we started correlating with the weeks. So you got the new moon, which is completely dark, and then you got the half moon, and then you got the full moon, and then you got another half moon, and then going back to the dark moon. So 4 of those in a month adds up to around a 30-day cycle. But it's not perfect. So people or religions that have based their calendar on the lunar cycle have had to make corrections also because of that. The day is easy to see because it's sunrise to sunrise the next day. So it's natural that the humans would base their time on that. And then the hours, minutes, and seconds were a little bit more difficult because we've got 10 fingers and 10 toes for counting, but how did we get to define our day in 24-hour cycles, and 60 minutes in an hour and 60 seconds in a minute? So do a little researching over the weekend, and it turns out that 60 has the most factors that you see here. It's got 10 factors that you can divide it by, and it was discovered by the ancient Sumerians 3100 BC, and because it was divisible by so many numbers, that it was great for business, and you could have 60 apples that could be divided 10 ways. So it was super for business. And if you look at your hand and stretch it out, you'll see 5 fingers, but there's actually 6 states there. Because when you make a fist, you've got 0 fingers up, and 0 is the extra state. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Or I mean, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the 6 states of the human hand. So, and let's see, if you look at any clock, any analog clock, you'll see that 12 is at the top, and you got 6 at the bottom, and So therefore, it any analog clock that you look at in the U.S. is a zero-based clock. We see 12, but how it acts is 0. So the 12 should actually be 0, and it should be named. It should be numbered 0 through 11, and then that would give you the 12 states of the clock. All right. So, what are the zero-based calendars? Well, the big one is the International Fixed Calendar. It's got 13 28-day months, and that equals 364 days, plus a 0 day for New Year. An extra month is added between June and July, and a leap day is added to the end of December every year. The International Fixed Calendar the keeps the current months that we have, so as not to generate too much confusion, and that but this added 13th month is added in the middle of the calendar, and it's called Sol, after the sun, of course. And so that's what the International Fixed Calendar is all about. There's another human calendar called, this is not Flansburgh's calculator. It starts with the beginning of human writing, which was about 12,000 years ago. And it simply just adds 10,000 to the existing positive years. So if you had, today's year, or this year would be equal to 12,025 in the human calendar, and the purpose of this calendar would be to get rid of any AD and BC and BCE before the Common Era references, because they're not zero based, and they make calculations difficult. For example, 1 AD would be 10,001 in the human calendar, but there is no 0 year, so it goes to 1 BC, and that corresponds to 10,000 in the human calendar. Alexander's death, 323 BC, would correspond to 9678. These are all positive numbers, so yeah, and then 10,000 BC corresponds to year 1. There's a positivist calendar. It's zero base, in the sense that they reserve a Day of the Dead, and it's added to the end of the not last month for the 365th day, and then the leap year follows the normal Gregorian calendar rules of what I said earlier. So every 4 years they add a 366th day, and that day is to honor the famous women of history.
Any idea why it started in 1789?
Well, it was kind of, the positivist calendar was invented in around the middle of the 19th century, so around 1850, and the French Revolution was a huge event in still just 60 years later. So that was like their years. That was the most important day of all, and the guy that invented it was French. So that was the most important part for him. So he just kind of like Unix guys establishing 1970, January 1, 1970 as the start of time for computers. Same way with the French. So there you go there. And then the positivist calendar months are named after famous people like Moses, Homer, Aristotle, and all these other famous people. And this guy, I don't know who Bichat is. assume he's French, probably a mathematician. So yeah, I didn't have time to look him up. Running around now. Okay. Yeah, here we go. How did I skip over that? All right. So I was talking about Scott Flansburgh. He's the human calculator. He can calculate numbers really quickly. Multiply, adding, subtracting, and dividing, all that. He doesn't do anything with calculus or anything past that, but he's got an interesting method for doing for any kid to learn how to calculate, do their multiplication tables really, really quickly and add, subtract, multiply, and divide any list of long numbers. So I first heard about him through that, and then come to find out he also, took up the cause of the zero-based calendar because he noticed that being, a human calculator brain, he noticed that the years are 364 days in a year, and that's divisible by 13, so 13 28-day months, and that's perfect. And so you just add a 0 for the 0 day for New Year, and bingo bango, you got a calendar that looks like this. And he didn't give the names of the month, or he didn't give the months any names. He just called it month 0, and for 1 month he starts with day 0. That's this would be your normal January 1. He makes that day 0, and that gives you your 365th day right there. And then everything else looks like this. So Sunday is always a 1, an 8, a 15, or a 22. And so the second month looks like this, except for the 0. So the second month starts out with 1 on a Sunday and goes all the way to 7. So Monday is going to always be a 2, a 9, a 16, or a 23. And it never changes. So the rest of the months, 1, 2, if we're going by 0, then months 1 through 12 all look like this. And there's 12, there's 12 more of them in addition to month 0. So, and the so interesting story about this kind of calendar is that it was first proposed in 1923. No, actually, it was proposed earlier on in the 1890s, and the founder of the Kodak company was a guy named Eastman, and he liked this calendar so much that he adopted it for his whole company, and they used it all the way up until 1989. But they were the only company, and so it kind of fell out of disfavor, and we fell back to because everybody else was using the Gregorian calendar, and religious people didn't want to give it up. So, we're kind of stuck with the Gregorian calendar right now. Yeah.
Ben, I hate to disagree, but I think there have been other companies that have adopted it. I worked for Milliken in the early 2000s, and they had 13 periods a year.
Really?
Yes.
Oh,
payday was you had 13 paydays in a year.
Yeah.
It was crazy. We had 28-day periods, and it was just nuts. I think funny. they eventually dropped it after I had left, which would be about 2007 or so.
2007, it lasted that long, man.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the exact same as that, but it was 13 periods a year. 28-day periods. It was weird.
Well, fundamentally, anyone who gets paid every 2 weeks.
Yeah, I like the 2-week getting paid every 2-week pay cycle instead of getting paid on the 15th and the 31st, because
yeah, that's what Eric was just saying.
Yeah, you never know when your paycheck is going to land, if it's going to land on Friday or Monday, and then you don't know if they're going to pay it early or what. So, yeah, I like the 52-week cycle. And there's so many people that have tried to fix this calendar problem because of this this little decimal right here is what's screwing everything up. Because that leaves you have to have a leap day every 4 years, and then every 100 years you do another correction, and then every 400 years you do another correction. So yeah, we just really needed the sun to get with the spin of the earth and the rotation around the sun and get in sync with each other, but they didn't, being random objects. So this is how we're doing it right now. But I can't imagine that the Gregorian calendar is going to keep on keeping on. I mean, if it's just inertia, it will. But if there's some kind of upsetting event, and then everybody says, "Well, why are we doing this? Let's go to a better calendar than the zero based 1328 or 13 months of 28 days ought to win out, and then we won't have February going to 29 days."
Ben, you mentioned the French Revolution, and I'm surprised you didn't mention the decimal time, metric time. French Revolution.
It was, yeah. Well, I honestly I didn't read about it. I poured over this all weekend, but I didn't run across that. Can you tell me more about it?
Yeah. So as a part of the French Revolution and the metric system, everything being base 10, they also went with metric time, decimal time, so that you had 20 hours in a day. In fact, I've seen a watch that had from 1 to 10. And then there was 100 minutes in an hour and 100 seconds in a minute. And then the calendar had 10-day weeks, which meant you had, what would that be, 36 weeks, which was divided by 12 or 10 or something like that. I don't know. It was something crazy like that. It would be 36 and a half weeks, or it's a strange thing. But yeah, I've actually seen a pocket watch that was a decimal pocket watch, and you look at it and you're like, well, that's weird. Why isn't 3 and 9 across from each other?
Decimal different from metric. You can have decimal time with our base 12. I've had time cards where I had to fill in the decimal.
Oh, the fractional part.
Yeah. So like it was 3.25 for 315.
Right, fractions of an hour. Yeah.
So I wonder why they did 20 hours instead of 10 per day.
Because then the clock would go,
Twice.
the hands of the clock would go around twice. Yeah. So you'd have
It still kept with
the first part of the day it was 10 hours, and the second part of the day.
The hour was longer.
Right. Yeah. Ever so slightly. Do it, 5/6 or 6/5 longer. Right?
6.
Yeah. Right.
1 1/5 longer.
It definitely sounds easier.
12 divided by 10. So yeah.
Yeah. So every time you look at a clock, you can now remember the ancient Sumerians that invented the sexagesimal system of having a base 60 numbering system, so that everything could be divided into as many divisible objects or numbers evenly. 60 can be divided 10 ways, and the astronomical clock is also based on this. Finland and the military uses an astronomical clock, 24-hour clock. So they start at midnight and they count 12 hours down to noon, and another 12 hours to midnight. So they truly have 24-hour days. So I thought that was interesting. And there is so much stuff about calendars. I just couldn't read it all in a whole weekend. This is the calendar wiki called calendars.fandom.com. Fandom is just, it's just a wiki for subjects that you're interested in. And this subject is calendars, and they have what is it? Okay, yeah. What day is it? Today's date and time in 101 different calendars. So there's no shortage of people trying to redo how we do our calendars, and nobody's ever really gotten it, perfect, because the Earth and the Sun couldn't get together on.
Could you click on that?
Yeah, sure. I clicked in it. It's not. Come on. All right. Oh, here it is. It's just slow. Okay. All right. So this is Tuesday, 11 February in the Gregorian calendar, which apparently has. Oh yeah, it's got ISO 8601 notation right here. And here's today's date. Many proposed archaic, fictional, and just plain weird calendars. I don't think they're maintaining this because I don't see anything to click. There's just a source RSS and
Yeah.
a repo. So I think somebody thought it'd be a good page to develop at one time and then just gave up maintaining it. But it was up to 101 calendars at one point. So there's a bunch out there. There's a whole page on just calendar reforms right here. And so there's, a calendar reform has to account for grouping of the days in the months, weeks. It has to have a leap year rule. It's got to do the numbering of years and the selection of the epoch, and deal with the year zero problem, which is there is no year zero in Gregorian. There's 1 AD, and the year before that is 1 BC. So they got to handle that. They got to handle when the start of the year is, when they're doing the winter solstice and equinox and Easter and all that, and then the naming of the months and weekdays. Also, they have to figure out which is the first day, because in the human calendar, it starts with the work week and then gives you 2 whole days to celebrate Saturday and Sunday, whereas the IFC calendar it starts with Sunday right here and goes to Saturday. So it splits up the weekend and makes the work week the central part of your life. And I particularly don't care for that. I would like to keep the Saturday and Sunday together, keep the weekend together, and then add the leap day and year day as appropriate. Okay, so that's all I can say about that. But the Sumerians, they were pretty smart, and they got let's see, 3100 BC, 3,000 years BC. They invented this, but then they got conquered in 2400 BC by the the Akkadians, and then in 1800 BC by the Ammonites, also called the Babylonians. But both those cultures saw the value of having a base 60 numbering system, and they adopted it, and that's how, and that has continued all through time to us today, and that's why you see the 12 on the top of your clock, or 60 minutes in an hour, and 60 seconds in a minute. All right. Any questions? Are y'all still out there?
No, I think we all understand everything right now.
Yeah.
In this room, at least.
Okay, I looked at the questions. Nothing in the chat, so. Yep. Sleeping. All right, Jace, do you have anything that you got your Linux tricks out to show us on the Linux command line?
Okay, let me unmute first, and then maybe you can hear me. Yeah. Okay. So I don't know. I was just this week I was trying to think of something that I could present because I didn't have a presenter. So I just came across something that we need to do at the house because my daughter forgot her password on her Linux laptop, and I figured that some people have come across these sorts of things, and maybe everyone knows this sort of stuff, but I thought I'd show it for anyone who may not know. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about the console. So does everyone in here, because these are the only place I can see hands, know what I mean when I talk about the console? Yeah. Anyone not know what I mean? Or what about online? I'm trying to gauge my audience. I guess part of what I'm wondering is if I talk about something, I'm expecting to be corrected, and if there's some neat things that someone can show me, please feel free to show me.
Talking about PlayStation, right?
Not a PlayStation, no, not that sort of console. Yeah, I'm
Well,
sorry. Go ahead.
There is the AWS console that's kind of different from what you're going to talk about, Jace. That's a GUI that, you know.
Yeah, possibly, yes.
Yeah.
So let me. I'm sorry. I guess I should probably share my screen. So I've got here. This is a virtual machine, and I've got it logged in, and I'm of course using a GUI in it. You can. I think you can probably see that it's QEMU with KVM. This is a VM Vert Manager. And in the background, or actually the window manager is, I think, either Mate or XFC or something like that. I don't know. I just created a VM, and this was the default. So anyway, but what I'm referring to is the console. This is the GUI in front, which is on top of usually X Windows or now what's the other one? What?
Wayland. Yeah.
Wayland. Thank you. Yes. And I don't know if everyone knows how to get there. First of all, but what you would do is there are 12 consoles available in Linux that you can have, and one of them is running your X Windows system. The way you get to another one from where you're running is you send a Control-Alt and then one of the F keys. So what I'm going to do in my virtual machine here is I'm going to do a Control-F1. And what that does is it sends me to TTY1. You can see right here, Debian GNU Linux 12, Debian 12, TTY1. That's my first console. And the reason that I'm doing it here in Vert Manager is because if I do it, and I'm going to do it here in this room, so those of you connected online, I may drop out for a second, but here I'm going to do it Control-Alt F1, That gets me to console 1, which is this. And I'm going to go back to where I was. All right, so now I'm back. Can you hear me okay? Am I still connected, Ben?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. So the magic that you didn't see, that the guys here in the building did see, was that I just went to the console in a similar way that I'm doing on the virtual machine over here. Now, what I'm going to do is send what I would be normally doing with my fingers with a Control Alt and then F1, F2, F3, F4. I'm just going to do that here in Vert Manager. Control F2, you see T to Y 2, 3, 4, and then 5. And then and that's just kind of the going to the different consoles. Now, by convention, early on when we first had GUIs, there were only 6 set up, and then the 7th was allocated to X Windows. Thank you. But you can always change that if you want to. And then the rest are usually not allocated to anything yet. Like I say, you can change that if you want to in the future. And in fact, on this laptop, I've got, I think I've got 10 of them going. So I don't know. But to go between each one of them you just hit the Control Alt and then your function key, and that'll connect to the teletype that you want to, which is the console that you want to. So everyone know all this already? No, you didn't know that? Okay, good. Someone learned something. Okay, so now I'm on a console. I can log in with the same username and password, and it is just a command line. That's all it is to it. You don't get the GUI. You don't get much else to it. But some of the things I wanted to show that are beneficial to having knowledge about the console was one of the examples that I was telling you about, that my daughter has forgotten her password, and she is the super user on her Linux machine. So there is no root password because it's Ubuntu based. Root has no password set. So the only way that I can get into that is one of a couple of different ways. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reboot this this VM and go into my boot manager, which in this particular case is Grub. This is usually the one that most distributions use. There are others out there. If you have a thumb drive or a CD-ROM or CD or DVD or something like that, it may be SysLinux. Some of the embed systems have another bootloader, but they all do about approximately the same thing. And in Grub, I'm going to go type E to edit. This is what gets sent. So the BIOS runs the bootloader, which in this case is Grub, and then the group bootloader loads the operating system. So for Grub, essentially what I'm looking for here, and the main thing I'm interested in, is this line for Linux, and initRD is important too, but for our purposes right now, just Linux is what I'm really interested in. And the Linux line tells you what your file system, your boot device is. In my case, it's the @root FS because I'm using Butterface. No, I'm sorry. So the VM Linux here is my kernel. It's in my boot directory on my @root FS mount point. File system device or something. Yeah. And then the root equals is the device. You could also, in my particular case, I'm using root equals UUID because my device, the hard drive that is UID based. And so I'm just going to skip all the rest of these, but the main thing I wanted to add here is if I do if I type the word single, this will boot in single user mode. And I'm going to press F10 because Control X or F10 is booting in Grub. So F10. So what this does now is it boots with the additional parameter of the word single. Now it's asking me for the root password. That doesn't help me in my particular case at home because I don't have a root password. But for this particular laptop, or for this VM, now I'm in single user mode. I've only got the one console because if I go to, that's F1, console 2 doesn't have anything running on it. 3 doesn't have anything running on it, and you can see the rest of them. But that's because I'm in single user mode. Now from here, this is where you've got a recovery system, and this is where you want to do your baseline, what you need just to get back going. If I had a problem with some other system like my file system, I could do stuff like that here. Luckily, that's because I know my root password. But again, that's single user mode. It's not multiple. Well, it's single user mode. There's not multiple processes running. It's just this command line. So what do I do if I don't remember the password? And watch this. It's going to reboot. So single puts it in single user mode, and I'm going to go back down here to Linux, and the equivalent of that is 1, and I'm going to press F10 just to show everybody that I'm going to be in single user mode. What this really is run level 1. So single user and S and capital S and 1 are essentially the same thing. So run level 1, which is a single user mode, only one process is running. There's no forking. You could have a process that forks, but the only thing that your init is just bash in this particular case. So I'm going to reboot again. So, sorry if this sounds kind of all over the place. I didn't really have a plan, so it is really all over the place. Okay. Problem with my daughter's laptop, I don't remember the password. So what do I do with that? Well, by default, you've got a program that is called init. Init is the first program that runs, and it runs everything else. It's the thing that starts multi-user mode. So instead of single user mode, you've got multi-user mode or user mode. Nowadays, the most common init is called systemd. Before that, it was sys5 init. There's also RC, which is BSD based. And then, there's other things. Embedded systems have their own. Your phone probably is something. Yeah. Your phone is booting Android. So it's got its own init system. But what I'm going to do in order to restore my password is I'm going to give it a program called bin bash. And that will be my init program, quote unquote. I'm going to do an F10 now. And there, I've got a prompt. And it is bash. And it is running in single user mode. Because my run level is unknown. It's not even it doesn't even know what run level means. Bash doesn't know that because it's not an init system. From here, then I can either use the password command to change and put in my new password, which is what I'll be doing on her laptop, or I could actually go and edit the Etsy password file if I wanted to, because I've got root running as that, and I'll go down here and I'll
So this
go
is
and
just the same as your root.
that's the only user that there is. It's the super user. It's user 0. So that's what's running bash right now.
And then did you need a password to get into this?
I did not.
Okay, so if someone gets a hold of your physical machine, if it's not good.
Oh yeah, physical access.
Physical access.
Well, unless you have things that just full disencryption.
Right.
It makes the assumption if you have physical access, you're the owner.
Yeah. That's what I was wondering. I was
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you can change someone's password.
Yeah, you need
So
hard
you
disk
must be
encryption
green,
and
so,
maybe
okay.
BIOS locking.
But that's even been true for like Windows
Sure.
and stuff. You can always boot from a covered it before full
Yeah.
disencryption.
Yeah.
So-
With physical access, you like you said, you can boot from a thumb drive and
I mean,
then
it's a neat trick.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
so there's that. I can't think of what else. What am I going to show?
I forgot a password, but you doing that, I know you just bypass it altogether. Just to see you.
I bypassed any kind of a net system.
Because normally,
So whenever
as
I
part
had-
of the NIT system, it runs a program called login. that
Right.
Right.
prompts you, so you just bypass the
So you
program.
bypass everything.
Exactly. And in this particular, I think in my particular case, it's I don't know if it's running System D, but there is in my RAM disk, my init RD,
Right.
the compressed file system that boots the regular file system, which boots in System D. Inside that is a login ish thing that asks for my root password. So yeah, that's part of the problem with the physical access.
Yeah.
So what was another thing I was thinking of? I can't think of what of. But yeah. Oh, here we go. So as you know, I typed in init equals, and the way I can find out what actually always gets run at boot time is this file called proc command line. Yeah, assuming that you have the proc file system mounted, which the proc file system is just a pseudo file system. It is a way to look into the kernel of what's running in the kernel right now. And I'm going to put this up here so that y'all can see that. You can see here at the bottom, boot image equals, and this, my VM Linux with my root equals, RO, all that sort of stuff was what you saw earlier in Grub. And you see at the very end, init equals /bin/bash. So this is the command line. If you think of the Linux kernel as a program, just a regular program, because that's what it is, these are the arguments that Grub is passing into that program. And each of these arguments may or may not have special meaning. In this particular case, the kernel knows what init is, and it knows that init is the first program to run all the rest of the programs. And so I told it mine in this particular case is bash. You'll see that the RO is there. RO is read only. So it will mount this file system, root equals, as my root file system, as read only. And you can see if I do a mount here, you can see that the bottom line here, dev VDA1 is on / my root file system, butterfs, read only. Oh, so that's another thing is now that if I were to type password, or if I were to change the etc password file, it wouldn't work because it's mounted root only. So I have to remount it. So I'm going to do that now. Mount with an option remount, comma RW, and I'm just going to use /. Did I spell that right? Okay. And let's make sure that I did that right. So you see VDA1 on / is butterfs with RW. So now I can actually change my password. Maybe I should have done that, and that would have prompted me to know what to do next. But yeah, so there are, as I'd mentioned in proc command line, several arguments that I'm passing in, and some of them are known by the Linux kernel. Some are just passed on to another program. It really can be any program can look at this proc command line and look at it and say, okay, well, that's what I need to do to be whatever, and inherit that variable or what have you to do other things. So yeah, so single is known by the kernel. No, that would be by the init system. Single 1SS. Those are traditionally from System 5, now inherited by System D. Root and boot and RO, RW. ZSwap is one that I've added in, and that is a compressed swapping file system. But anyway, a couple of things like that. If you want to look at all of the all right, I'm gonna reboot now. So, oh yeah, Bash doesn't know what to do with a reboot because there's no init system. Okay, it doesn't ask. There's no PID 1, so now I'm gonna have to do a Control-Delete to reboot. But yeah, so for the kernel itself, there is in the documentation of the Linux kernel source code under documentation. I'm going to have to wait for it to boot up. Maybe I can pull it up over here. Oh, sorry. Okay. Oh. Okay, build 6. Okay, this I was looking at my home laptop and not this one. So anyway, but yeah, there's documentation in the Linux source code under documentation called, I looked it up last night, command line, that has all the different flags that are available. Some of which include like if you see here, whenever I go to one of the prompts, if you want to make that a larger or a smaller font, you can either use the VGA equals to give it a different resolution. That's the old style. The new style is video equals. And with that, you can send it an actual X by Y dimensions, if I remember correctly. And I guess that's really all I can think of off the top of my head. Is there anyone else that has another trick on the command line that on the console that you could teach me about, that you know about?
Not so much a trick, but just my only use case for the console, whatever, is just because when X Windows or Wayland is locked up,
Yeah.
and so switch to the console to kill the process.
Yes. Yeah, I do that.
Just rerun it from that console.
Yeah.
Get everything running again.
I often, in fact, whenever I boot up, I go into TTY2 and log in for that very purpose. If the CPU is cranking away, you type in your username here, and then you never get a password prompt. if it's
PS something, kill it.
right, yeah, exactly, yeah. Were you all able to hear that online? What we were talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Anyone else got a trick or a hint or a use case? Ben?
I'm thinking I like to do the net booting. iPixie and all that.
Yeah.
But
So with iPixie, the command line is sent along with the IPXC protocol too?
Not the HTTP protocol. Let me think. The kernel downloads over HTTP, which was really fast. But the initial program comes over TFTP, trivial file transfer protocol, which is hilariously insecure, but that's the way it works. But yeah, the computer when it boots up doesn't have an IP address, so it has to ask DHCP for its IP address, and then DHCP has to give it the IP, and then it knows what it is, and then it can be able to talk on the network. But man, I haven't done that in 10 years, so I'm probably talking junk right now. But that's what I remember.
So that's all I really thought about, showing off a little bit. Some of the problems that I have at home is whenever I have a full disk and I start deleting, ButterFS backups, then I have to go to a console because that's churning away and I can't use X Windows for that sort of stuff. But yeah. Too many snapshots. Yeah. I have a snapshot every hour, and that's my problem.
Every hour?
Yeah, and it's full. My disk is full. So, yeah, that's about all I got. Unless someone else has another suggestion.
Did I lose you?
Earth to Jace.
I lost Jace. I thought it was me. Accidentally pushed a button. Actually, about the net booting, I remember there was. Let me take the screen here, and I'll let Jace's lost his connection. All right, sure. There we go. So there's a project called netboot.xyz, and puts all your netboot XYZ puts all your favorite operating systems on one thumb drive, and you can just boot your computer from the thumb drive and choose whatever operating system you want, or you can put it on. Use the iPixie project and put it on a netboot server. So I was a big fan of this. What? Okay, I made my screen too big.
What is that called? NetBoot?
Netboot.xyz. I'm trying to pinch my screens. There we go. Yeah. Simple to yeah, you can boot into many different operating systems from one thumb drive. Let's see what the downloads page. Yeah, you just download the ISO, write it to a USB, and boot from it, and Bob's your uncle. Yeah, here we go. Can you see this GIF going, or does it just show up as a black screen?
I'm seeing a black screen.
See the black screen.
Oh, shoot.
Are you seeing a black screen?
No, I can see it.
Okay, let me reconnect.
I see it.
Yeah, he's got a default grub program that has a whole bunch of operating systems on it, and you just pick from many different tools, all the Ubuntu operating systems, all the Windows installers, Clonezilla, Partition Wizard, Memtest 86, all that stuff. and an iPixie shell if you need it. So might actually try this if I get motivated this week. So I think they've made it easier than it used to be, because I remember 10, 12 years ago it was kind of difficult because you had to set your DHCP server up with option 67 or 68, and which when you turn your computer on, your computer doesn't have an IP address, so it really can't talk to anything. So it has to say, it has to yell out on the network, "Who am I?" And the network, the DHCP